Hmm. Yo. I don't have a lot of time. I think Carolyn will be getting dropped off within the next 45 minutes or so, so just a little time. And I had this idea about, I've had this idea for a while about um, uh, the, I don't know, so you have the post-war consensus, which I don't really know. I mean, there's something about it that, all these different models, these different ideas that we get bandied about. There's obviously some truth in them. But, and I think there's something really truthful about the post-war consensus. But a lot of it is like, well, it's like I don't know, post-war consensus is like a Western consensus. And I think it's kind of like there's a lot of assumptions. They're just kind of like it's very presuppositional. I don't know. Maybe that's what maybe that's what a consensus is. I don't know. I guess I should look at what that word means. Let's see. Definition of consensus.
Consensus.
A general agreement. Okay. Consensus is a general agreement. Let's see. Interesting. So the use of the word consensus, there's this tool that I really like to use on Google. It's I think it's like some sort of graph, and the idea is the word that's used, over a period of time in literature. And you can go back, like, let's see, we can make it go back to as early as 1600. And then I think the latest information, it goes up to the year like 2019 is where its research kind of stops. But so yeah, that's how often it was used. So you got like 1600 to 2019, and about 1950 there, it started to kind of jump up. It really started jumping at 1950. That's where it peaked out in 2000. So, okay. Let's ask, what is the post-war consensus? Let's go back. What is the post-war consensus? The post-war consensus, or post-war settlement, was a period of broad cross-party agreement in Britain from 1945 to the late 1970s, prioritizing a mixed economy, Kenyanism, and an extensive welfare state. It supported public ownership of key industries, full employment, and national health services. Okay, so that's actually interesting. It actually goes. Okay, origin. Well, this is the AI version. Origins and end. The consensus arose from the shared experience of the Great Depression and World War II, which created a desire for social reform. It was challenged by stagflation in the 1970s and officially ended with the rise of Margaret Thatcher's neoliberal free market approach in 1979. While often cited, many historians debate its extent, arguing that significant ideological differences still existed between parties during this era. Okay, so that, I think, interesting. So the way that we talk about the post-war consensus in the corner is like, there's like this I think we've kind of taken. So now here, if we go to American Reformer, which is AmericanReformer.org, post-war consensus by Ben R. Crenshaw, July 12th, 2024. It's a different thing. So now there's a couple different things. Interesting. Well, the idea there is, again, kind of like this. I think it seems like, and anybody can join whenever you like. That'd be great. So I don't have to talk to myself. The post-war consensus being kind of like this assumed way that we would interact with each other in the public arena, and yes, but I think it's also the way that individuals kind of interact with it is related to attitude and perhaps ethics or something like that. And a lot of that is kind of like born out of this idea of we all understood what happened in the first two great wars and how devastating that was. And there's like this kind of fear around the world devolving into a type of madness again. And so we want to prevent that madness from unfolding. And so we'll agree, um, not even by law, but we'll just agree that perhaps we should um, act in an upright manner, I suppose. So that things don't fall apart. So all right, so there I think there's like, sorry, I thought I heard somebody upstairs. There shouldn't be anybody up there. And then, like one of the kind of like collective symbols that came out of that, hello Olson, one of the collective symbols that emerged out of the post-war consensus was that like a symbol like, or like Hitler is horrific and terrible, which is true. But I wonder too, like, so they say that post-war consensus is like falling apart. And if that's the case, then what is what now is emerging? Another thing that I've thought about, and I think it's kind of related, is, and I've talked about this a lot throughout the last couple of years, is this idea of what's up, Brigsby? This idea that and I think the idea is rooted in something like, because we collectively as a culture, or as a culture, we don't have a shared a very strong sense of a shared identity, and so like maybe in the past there'd be something like religious perspective would be kind of like a shared baseline that you would engage with, like we would all have, like, or maybe like a shared identity would be something like the king is like the highest, and or like God and king, and as I think individuality or individualism kind of became more prominent, our shared identity becomes more dissolved or watered down or diluted, and then the individual becomes, or the idea of the individual becomes the highest kind of shared identity. You do you, I'll do me, kind of thing. So all that is to say that in a world where individualism and liberty are like the highest, or at least claimed to be the highest, or the assumed highest principle, politics will inevitably become the commons, or um, the thing that we rally around, because my voice um, is a part of that entity. Okay, so that being said, and again, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just a fucking tile guy. I don't know shit. I'm just thinking out loud. So I really, honestly, I'd be lying if I say I don't care what you think, because I do. I don't like to be thought of poorly, but it's kind of out of my hands. But so all that is to say, politics had become so powerfully relevant and important that like, I think where I really first see this really become kind of like the posture, the dominant posture, or let's say the driving narrative, because I think narratives hold it all together. Like, narratives, without narratives, none of this really matters. And so you have to have at the center of the narrative, you would have to have central characters that are kind of like okay, like Beauty and the Beast. Okay, in Beauty and the Beast, the central character, I think, is the Beast. He actually, because everything is kind of contingent on his transformation, and in the Beauty and the Beast, you have Gaston, who, the way that he operates, it's interesting. How do I put that? So you have Beast, who is, again, he's the center. He really is the center of the story, because, well, I mean, you also have Belle. So you have Belle, Gaston, and the Beast. And if the Beast, if the Beast never actually changes, he can't actually attract the Belle. And how do I put this? Well, I guess it's all just to say, if the Beast isn't there, the story doesn't exist. Maybe that's the best way of putting it for this purpose. But then under that, I guess, if the beauty isn't there, then the Beast doesn't exist. But the primary pivoting character that makes that whole story work is the Beast. He activates the Gestalt character, he activates the Belle character, and everything kind of happens around there. And then, like, all the other characters, like the servants in the household, all of them exist because of the Beast and all that stuff. Okay, so that being said, right, exactly. But the point of Smith's story is that the Beast is the central character, and without him, it doesn't work. So I think we've become in the world in the actual world that we live in, we have these narratives, right? And I think, like, the current over, like, let's say, the last 12 years or something, the primary the beast, so to speak, the primary character of the narrative has been Trump, obviously. And without Trump, I mean, the woke wouldn't exist, and without Trump, the uh, you wouldn't like the left wouldn't have the extreme left wouldn't have their kind of backlash, and then the right wouldn't have their savior, so to speak, whatever, however you want to say that. So like he is without the Trump character there, the this kind of and it has to be a very powerful character, like a very powerful in the sense of like um, big enough to rest the entire kind of narrative upon, right? Well, and before that, I think Obama was that character. So yeah, you have those characters, and then in the background you have like a character like Hitler, who is kind of like, he becomes kind of uh, like a barrier or a like a some sort of a symbol of um, boundary or something like that. And and then before that, you have a guy like Abe Lincoln, who is like another, like the extreme opposite of that, who's kind of like this kind of martyr, like savior, like background character, who is kind of the another extreme of like of a kind of not necessarily a barrier, but an unreachable kind of um, uh, ideal, right? And or maybe even what makes him important is that the ideal that he died for is like an ideal that was obtained, which is goodwill and all that stuff, and equality and all that kind of stuff. And then so okay, so you got these different kind of background. I don't know if they're archetypes or whatever. Um, um, yes, he was. Abe Lincoln was super divisive and still is for a lot of folks. But after his death, there was like this a new kind of reality um, came into it had emerged, and I think we're still in that reality in a lot of ways. And it's an assumed reality. These are assumptions. And okay, so then, like I was saying, so now that we have, Trump has been like the last 12, 10, 12, 14 years, whatever it is, 8 years. I don't know however long this kind of like we've rested our understanding or our we've kind of I mean everybody, all, the left and the right, and maybe even some of the center has kind of their shared narrative that they agree on or disagree on, because it's still a shared narrative, that has all kind of rested in this particular character who's very, like I said, big enough to rest it upon. Now here's the thing, in the next election cycle or whatever, like he's gone, right? So he's off the table. In some sense, I think at this point he's even effectively off the table. Like, and this is why I think we started to see kind of like the woke kind of like crashing, because it doesn't have like it's just it's kind of like a dying kind of um, narrative. And so it's like, well, that's over. What next? So then, you see these different kinds of kind of anomalies popping up here and there, and like, the different characters that um, people are trying to push up the narrative hierarchy and make, and that, like, these particular characters, I don't think will actually be the characters, but this idea of, like, we're entering a world where we won't have this either savior / big bad wolf character to rest the story upon. And so, like, you'll have, like the Fuentes or whatever these different maybe they're kind of like I don't know, maybe they're kind of like lights in the darkness that the bugs flock to, right? So people are trying to figure out, what is it where are we headed? Where are we? We're like, we're entering a desert, clearly. I mean, that is so abundantly clear. And I think everybody is a little freaked out by that. And so we've come to say that Hitler is kind of like the devil, right? And obviously a lot of us say that, well, no, that's not the case, because a man can't be the devil. It's like, he's just a man, and although he's horrible and all that stuff, he's not. We ought not, give him that that high of a status of power. But I think I was thinking about this, and I've not listened to very much on any of the Epstein stuff, but like, from what little I have listened to, hang on a second. Oh, I tried to mute in time. Sorry, I missed. I find it interesting is, like, this Epstein character as a narrative tool is like he's almost more stunning than like like anything that the left or the right has to offer, and like almost like more evil than Hitler himself in a way, right? Because like and obviously these are like, I'm talking about this in terms of like a way of thinking about this. So these aren't like factual things that I'm saying here. There's just a way of kind of understanding where we're heading. And I think like the Epstein the Epstein event might be there might be a new consensus on the other side of the Epstein event. And I don't know what that looks like, really. And so, yeah. That's what I'm thinking. And I don't know what anybody else has to say about it, because I don't even know if I've been clear enough in my thoughts and explaining kind of like, I'm trying to give like an aerial view, like it's a very low resolution, mealy mouthed aerial view of the narrative structure of our social landscape. And there are different characters in there, like, so if you have like let's say Hitler's a particular character, type of evil character. Then you have Martin Luther King Jr. is a particular kind of saintly character, and as well as probably Charlie Kirk, and as well as Abe Lincoln, and these are Western characters. But yeah, there's like, so you got these different kinds of characters, and then you have a character like Epstein, which I think will be, or at least they're trying to make him. That's the thing too. So, and we're all kind of implicit in this, and the internet is a kind of like a collective spirit, in the same way that where they say the Buddha of the future is the Sangha, I think is what that means. And what that means is that collective group that Sangha will be the Buddha versus the individual or whatever. And the internet is kind of like a character in and of itself, and it's very Legion-esque, like it's a Legion character. For a lot of reasons. It's self-centered, it can't be contained, it's full of many different characters. It takes itself very seriously while feigning that it doesn't. All this different kinds of stuff. And so what does that mean? I have no clue. All right, well, that's all I have to say about that. And I think I want to say thank you for your time and your attention. And what else can I say? I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts on this, if they are willing to put them forward and wrestle with this, debunk it, if you will. It'd be very helpful if you did. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So thanks again for your time and attention. Bye-bye.